Exactly.
Just a quick update. I set this live, so people should be trickling in.
Cool.
Wonderful. I feel like we usually wait about 5 or 10 minutes until we fully jump in. If anybody's like me, they're running 5 minutes behind in their life, no matter what they do. So I figured we could hang out for a couple minutes.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny because I'm also perpetually 5 minutes late to like everything.
Yeah.
So the switch to remote world, like that didn't change it, you know. And my excuse just it doesn't fly being 5 minutes late to things where it's like a video call.
Yep. No, it sure doesn't. When I was that should have a name actually, like the Zoom allowance or something, where it's like the 5 minute thing. That's kind of how it was when I was in college. I studied abroad in Dublin, and in Ireland, their school is very, very casual, but their testing is very intense. So for Americans that had to show up to school every day, that was like our requirement. We cared the whole time until it was testing time, and then didn't care at all. And it was the reverse for Irish students. But at any given time, the professors would show up between like 15 minutes to a half hour late normally. And that was just cool. All the American students are like stressed out, like, oh my God, what is going on? I don't know what to do. But the professors were just cool, casual, would trickle in. That's how the whole lesson was. So we should all be on Irish time.
Yeah, there we go.
The pandemic.
I like that.
That's my approach anyway, my attitude. Just checking if there's any way for me to see who has joined us. There is. Cool. So it looks like we have a couple people coming in. We'll wait maybe 2-3 more minutes. We can all stare at our Enjoy the Fizz logo and my art in the background.
There you go. Yeah, I've got a skyline somewhere over here and a lot of a mess. So I'm not going to whip around to show things because things are definitely not clean at my desk right now.
Hey, I have a clean little window, and that's the only thing that we got to look at. I did put pants and shoes on today for this event. So it's a really, really big deal.
Yeah. I mean, being in an office now, like I was talking about before we jumped on, pants are required.
Yeah, the rules of society, they still apply. Good to know that.
Yeah, weird.
Some things are consistent. I find comfort in that.
Yep.
That is something I miss, though. We don't have to tangent too much off into fashion, but man, do my clothes miss being out in the world. You know, that's where a lot of my investments have gone. You know, that's where a lot of my money has gone into my closet. And it's just sad. But honestly, what's stopping us from wearing it anyway?
True. But I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know the last time I purchased any article of clothing, like new, since the pandemic started, because I'm like, I don't necessarily need like a new shirt. Who am I seeing?
Who's going to see the new shirt? But you will. You got to treat yourself.
Yeah, sweatpants. Yeah. Sweatpants is the treat.
We were talking to someone else in another growth series about the luxury space, and fashion sort of came up. Like the big luxury fashion and the items that people buy sort of, you know, for fun. Obviously, no one needs an Hermes bag, but people certainly want it. And the person that was on the growth series with us, I'm blanking on her name. I apologize to her. She mentioned that people are still making those luxury purchases, just kind of more so in a mindful way about things that they kind of really want to keep close to them instead of just adding accessories on. And I thought that was interesting, kind of like quality over quantity here in COVID.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, I've heavily invested, not heavily, I guess. I've just bought a bunch of stuff like related to like entertainment at home. You know, like a new Xbox. I actually just got it today. Super excited. The new Oculus VR setup.
Nice.
Yeah, so like a bunch of stuff like that to kind of pass time in a way that's more fun, but less so on like the like, I guess just like fashion or unrelated items. It's all about like comfort and entertainment for me right now.
Yeah, I can see it. Actually, that's a great segue. Why don't we jump in and begin? Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Growth Series. I see that we have a couple attendees here. We do one of these a couple times a month to speak to local Chicago entrepreneurs about growth and how they've grown in their industry. So, Joe, I'd love for you to make a little introduction to yourself to everybody that we have here. I'll give a super fast introduction about VisualFizz, but I promise it will be like 30 seconds fast, and then we can jump in.
Sounds good. So I'm Joe Calderone, marketing director for NPK Hospitality. I'll go into that a little bit, but my experience, I started off at a marketing agency, and then after about a year, I left there and started my own marketing firm called Calderone Marketing, which is a super non-creative name. And I mainly focused on kind of two parts, one being corporate America and the other being nightlife and entertainment. So doing marketing for music venues, nightclubs, music festivals for about 4 or 5 years. Before I jumped back into the corporate world, had clients like Bosch, Bosch Power Tools, Bosch e-bike systems, the Chicago Auto Show, Allstate Insurance, really ran the gamut of all different kinds of corporate accounts. And then an opportunity presented itself back in the entertainment and hospitality industry to lead the NPK team. And NPK has really like 3 main branches to it, I would say. The first being the music venues that everybody in Chicago at least would know, Radius, Prism, Concord, those different music venues and events and festivals and kind of like live entertainment. The second is something that we're getting off the ground and really starting to launch on the hospitality side. So different restaurant concepts, delivery concepts, so those ghost kitchens. And then the third is kind of what we've been calling business services. So it's doing things that we do really well for ourselves and turning that into a service offering for other businesses. So if that's commercial build outs, obviously with COVID, we've had to do a lot of disinfection and sanitization at our venues. So offering that as a service to other venues and businesses as well. So leading the charge, it's really interesting because we're in a growth phase right now, which seems kind of weird given the COVID times, but really building out and launching all of these new concepts, new properties, new brands even has been really exciting, really interesting. And we're really setting ourselves up for a strong 2021 right now. Obviously with like on the live music side, there aren't any shows or concerts, but how do we position ourselves to be in a strong place once that returns and ahead of the competition curve?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, there's so many webinars that talk about COVID and post-COVID and pre-COVID, and it's just all centered around COVID. But especially in your case, where you're focused on, more of that in-person hospitality feel, it's definitely a struggle. So it's really interesting, at least for me, to pay attention to what companies and marketers that like yourself are doing to not only build that trust about sanitation in the event space again, but then also help make sure that those practices are put out everywhere. So it's very timely for us to have you on. It's actually, I heard you say what oh, I hear some background noise, sorry. It's actually pretty cool that I heard you say a couple of those venues, because I personally am very, very into live events in a past life have sold tickets to live events in points of my career as well online. Swing-in tickets is sort of how we refer to that. But live events are I just feel like they're so integral to, the human experience of 2019, we'll call it, and before then. So it's really going to be something to watch this industry change and grow as we move through it. So definitely think the 3 branches of NPK are pretty interesting. Those are almost independent businesses in themselves. What are some of the main differences between what you guys do for music venues and then what you're doing for the restaurant hospitality space, and of course that business service outward? We'd just love to hear about some of the maybe key differences, a summary, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, with on the live music side, it's interesting because even within that, there's really like 2 main branches. For people not in the industry, we call it like hard tickets and soft tickets. And what that means is hard tickets is, you buy a show for a concert, months in advance, you're going to buy that, or you're going to that show you're looking forward to it. You're committed to it. You've bought your ticket. Soft tickets are more of those like, oh, hey, let's walk up to the door at this venue. This looks cool. Let's go into this, see what this is about. And it's not, you're not like pre-committed to it. So even that within itself, I mean, getting people to commit to something, especially shout out to all the millennials that have commitment issues. I see you, because you don't buy tickets to things and you wait until the last minute. But
and you
really
pay
have to treat
the price.
exactly. But like you treat those audiences totally different within that genre. Whereas on the restaurant hospitality side, like you really have to push customer loyalty. I mean, people on the concert side are buying tickets. Like obviously you have to have a great venue, but you're buying tickets to see a specific band or experience or artist. And that really drives ticket sales. Whereas restaurants, you don't want somebody just to come to your place once. You want them to come have a great experience and come back again. So from a marketing standpoint, you have to talk to those audiences totally differently and treat them totally differently and offer them different benefits and give them kind of like more confidence in different things and really get them excited and driving that. So with then the business services side, I mean, it's really B2B. So you have to really, with the disinfectant side and the commercial services side, you have to introduce the problem and kind of tell the story. Okay, for some business owners, they may not even know that they have this need. So you have to tell the story, introduce a problem that, oh yeah, you're right. Get them thinking I do have that issue, and then position ourselves in a way that we solve that from a way that improves their business, gives them more business, or just increases their visibility in the marketplace. So it's really is three totally different audiences and three totally different like messages. And to reach these people, you have to hit them where they're active. And all three of those are totally different too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything there makes sense for sure. Something that I'm hearing, as we're talking about the differences between these businesses, they're all centered around building that customer loyalty, whether it's with the direct consumer themselves, whether it's with the businesses that you work with that face consumers, whatever it is, building this loyalty, building this community is key to the success of it all. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And I think on top of that, like one of the things we're really championing is how we use data, because I think that's something that and I know we've kind of talked about this, and the whole like premise of this is really getting beyond the algorithms, right? And a lot of what marketers are doing right now is trying to kind of get in front of the algorithm, trying little like different tips and tricks that like game the algorithm so their content shows up more. But a lot of that, like, if the algorithm makes a switch and all of a sudden your content isn't showing up more, which like we've seen time and time again, page organic reach going down, like where are you left? Like you're going to revisit these same tweaks, you're doing all this stuff all over again. And it's a game of cat and mouse, right? So one way we get around that is really, really pushing for strong data sources that we own rather than giving up to and like having in the platforms of the social channels. It's really easy in our industry because like when you buy a ticket, like you give us all of your data, or if you make a reservation at a restaurant, you're giving us all of your data. But like new and creative ways that we can use that and incorporate that, kind of like sift through the data, like find what the data tells us about the different personas for who we're reaching, and pushing that to, finding within that, utilizing it on the business services side. So we're really kind of heavy in using data to approach, kind of segment, tell different messaging, and push out to different audiences.
Yeah, awesome. I heard two things that I feel like really resonate. For me personally, at least, I know my team at VisualFizz gets real tired of me talking about how each of our moves needs to be really data driven and absolutely needs to be based on the data that we're seeing. Coming from the entertainment space, exactly like you said, the amount of data that a person gives you just by making a purchase through a Facebook ad, like, oh my gosh, it's awesome. It's the Wild West out there for marketers. There's so much to work with. It's really fun for us to work with. But something else that you said, I feel like is really important to what we're talking about here. We're not here to game the algorithms. There's the short game and then there's the long game. SEO
Yep.
is the same way. If you play to the algorithm nonstop all the time, you will be doing work nonstop all the time, and you will always be going 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yep.
If you make awesome content and build a customer brand a brand rather that customers love and are loyal to, and they really feel good about being a part of, there's that long-term game. The algorithm changes, you make small changes, you're still creating quality content.
Exactly.
So the content is king phrase, it still reigns true today. Content has changed quite a bit, be it video or podcast or whatever media it is. But you gaming the algorithm isn't really what anyone in the long game is here for.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, we have conversations I've had in my agency life, like clients all the time with like, oh, well, I read that posting at 10:30 a.m. and making sure we have 4 posts per week, like the algorithm like enjoys those things. And it's like, at the end of the day, what you want to do is put out something that's meaningful to your audience and not just post or put out content just for the sake of putting out content. There's different conversations around that. Like right now on the music venue side, how many times can you say we miss you? Like that's really like all we've got going for us now is like, oh, sorry, we miss you guys. And it's like, we don't want to like keep like, that doesn't build our brand. That doesn't do anything for us. It gets content out there for the sake of content, but like, how is that meaningful? So finding creative ways. And it's the same thing with the restaurant industry really too. Like if it's not meaningful, like why do it just to do it? And when the music venues open up again, when we announce our first lineup of shows like that, regardless of what we've done for the past 6 months, like that's going to get like insane organic reach. People are going to be super excited, and we're going to reach the people we need to reach.
Yeah, for sure. I can absolutely see it being the huge, surge volume increases for whatever it is, especially in the urban areas where this is what we do. This is what we live for. Yeah, I mean, where I'm a big fan of specifics. Excuse me, when it comes to the marketing side of things, we can definitely talk about the concepts of growth and all of this stuff, but anybody can read the old Neil Patel article. What are some specific ways that you go above and beyond the "we miss you" post or build the hype? I think this is a really nuanced question because we're all sort of fragile online right now and on social media. Like sometimes seeing concerts, I mean, this is a very charged word anyway, but it sort of triggers you in a way, just watching young people crawl all over themselves. You're like, oh my God, germs.
Yeah.
But you also miss it. You miss it a lot. And it kind of bums you out a little bit sometimes to see. So I feel like there's a fine line between getting people excited and hyped and breathing positivity into the social media channels, and then also facing the reality of what is and how it will have to change. So to ask the question one more time, we'd love to hear some specifics about the ways you go above and beyond the, we're just posting to post, we miss you, this is all we got kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a time with the venues closed to a couple different things. It's to reinforce the message of our spaces. So right now for Radius, which is like a 4,000 person music hall that just opened 2 weeks before the pandemic, actually. So we just had the grand opening weekend and that was it. We're doing a lot of really like giving back to the community. We're doing food drives, we're doing charitable toy drives, and we're using social media to get the word out in different community pages and to make a difference. And then, which is great goodwill to the community and obviously doing a great thing, but it strengthens our brand in the neighborhood, which in Chicago obviously is super specific. Like if the Pilsen community doesn't like a venue in Pilsen because it's loud and rambunctious and causing problems, that'll have big issues. Then with some of the other venues, we're really championing like how we've upgraded sound during this time. Obviously in the music industry, sound is something super specific. So we're using social and digital to push, and our audiences are really focused on like the sound acoustics. They want the good experience. So we're pushing that. We have some concepts that we haven't launched yet that we have a plan in place to really build hype before people even know about it. So it's like kind of like that insider audience, getting them excited about it. And again, it's with that, championing like different key things that we want you to associate with us. So like, I mean, they're all buzzwords that aren't specific, but when you see it come to life, you'll kind of attach those things to each other. But like experiential, immersive, different things like that, where you're not just going to a concert, but you're being put into a place outside of it. So that's something we've seen a lot of with fans wanting, is like they don't want to just see a band on stage for 3 hours and then leave. They want an experience. And especially coming out of this, like concerts have to be done differently, not so much like because of COVID, but also just from the fan perspective. Like they don't want to just sit, see, and then leave. So we're sort of like championing that and kind of like floating things past people that even if it doesn't totally click with them right now, we're planting the seed to get them excited about something for the future.
Which is crazy to think about if you really think about it. It's almost like it can be applied with such a marketing lens. You know, you're almost educating the audience on, hey, you need this. Hey, you're going to be really excited. Here's what it is. And then, you know, the loyalty is built up. So it's definitely, I love the buzzword that you used there, the experiential factor. I would say that is like the center of concerts and, you know, live events and hospitality. You're exactly right. We don't want to go sit there and listen to music for a couple of hours and be on our merry way. It's about the experience. And I definitely think it'll be very interesting to watch the way brands like yourself or you know, even some of the venues themselves use this time to upgrade, like you said, their acoustics and some other things that can draw people back in, since that experiential factor that we're all so accustomed to and know and love is changing. So I think it's really interesting to watch that change. Definitely the acoustics are a main struggle as someone who loves live events. And I know on our team, we definitely love music as well. The drive-in experience just doesn't have the same noise, you know? If you don't feel it vibrate your whole body, what's the point?
Yeah, we did do a Halloween. I'm gonna get a little interactive and show a picture on my phone. We did a Halloween event at the Lakeshore Drive-In, which those guys had an amazing setup. And it was like full festival sound, and you were just like you had like a 6-foot radius around your car that like you could go in, but then there was a parking spot. So like you were outside of your car, but enjoying it. And we did it for Halloween. Let me find this photo. Anybody who's on this call who knows me in person is like, he's doing the thing he always does in person on this presentation. I'm always showing people things on my phone.
It's on brand, right?
Exactly. But like, so we had like full statues like this put all throughout. Yeah. But like, because we still wanted to give across like the festival vibe at a drive, like kind of get it as close as possible while still obviously being safe. And that's something we're championing like really throughout everything we do. This is like, for example, we're going to be launching a ghost kitchen, which is, for those who don't know, it's like no physical retail space or restaurant space. It's just delivery only in the apps through our website. And we're still championing, like, we want it to be interactive. We want it to be cool. Like, we don't want you to just like order a sandwich and be like, oh, that was good. You know, we want to kind of get you involved in the brand. And we have some really exciting things, ways people can interact with us and kind of participate in the experience of eating, I guess. That'll be really cool. So I know that was not specific, but I'll send around links afterwards.
Yeah, no, we would love to see it. That's what I mean. It's really interesting. We as humans, you know, as the whole marketing experience, it is changing for sure with stuff like this. It will definitely change again, but we crave the experiential factor, you know, the genuine experiences that we look for. And I'd like to use that as a tangent to sort of bring us back to the topic at hand here. You know, how do we create growth, social media growth, in genuine ways that build the trustworthiness of the brand? You know, at least for me on a personal consumer note, and in the consumers that I've studied in my ticketing experience in live events, you know, it sometimes is a decision that you make on the fly, but you still know what to expect. You're still aware that, yes, I want to go here. I'm probably going to have a great time. You probably already know the people that you want to attend this show with, whether you buy it on the fly or you buy it 6 months out. You're still aware of what's happening. You know, you still have an attachment to the brand that got you there. So how do we, I'd like to talk about some specifics about how we can build up that brand, how we can use branding to build up trust and that experiential factor on social media a bit. And then also, of course, focusing on how we build follower growth, not just by posting 4 times a week, because that's what the algorithm likes.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we like when you think about it as marketers, like we have so many different levers that we could pull from, and there's like a set number of levers, right? You have influencer outreach, you have advertising, you have organic social, your website, media relations, PR, and there's some more tied in there, but like that's really at the end of the day, like we have a set number of levers to pull. It's really about how creative you get with those levers to make them work for you the most, right? So like when you're talking about, everybody who has a Facebook page, like your organic growth, if you just set up a Facebook page, you have a link on your website and you're like, all right, I'm open for business, come like look at my content, like that doesn't happen. So it's really about like, okay, let's talk about growth for organic social channels. At the end of the day, every client that I've ever talked to, like you do have to have some sort of paid piece to it. I don't want 1 second.
Sorry, I was muted as well. I could fill in the blanks a little bit with some of the social media stuff about building that follower growth. I think it really is about delivering the right message at the right time and making sure that you're speaking to actual people. The genuine factor matters really very much. Exactly. So another question. Oh, go ahead, please.
I was just going to add to that like, at the end of the day, if you're not using your user base to help you grow, like you want that second degree of connection, right? So getting that engagement and getting people involved in your brand is essential from an organic standpoint to helping you grow, because just hoping for that audience to kind of build you and find you, like you need those people to do it.
Yes, for sure. Something you just touched on that I got really jazzed about. I'm going to forego my other question all the way. Is this concept of social media growth, and I'm going to say it, virality. Going viral is obviously not something that happens really anymore. It's not very common, except for that guy on TikTok that made Fleetwood Mac come back. But other than that concept, things don't really go viral. You utilize your current social network to reach people that you can't before. So to kind of explain, just for the people listening from a marketing perspective, if you're on Facebook and Joe, you share something, I go on Facebook and like it. Now everybody on my follower list sees your post. When you might be friends with 2 people in my friends list, now all 300 or however many friends I have see your post. You reach audiences you didn't before. If one of my friends likes that same post, well, now you've reached a wide range of audiences that you didn't before. So even though social media is a pay to play concept, the organic follower growth, it really is this exponential reach that just builds and builds and builds on itself. So that's really where the true power of social media on the organic side lies. And I think that that's where that trust is built with the audience. It's this concept of my friend recommended it, so it must be cool. I want to be in this group with my group of friends. We want to socialize with groups of people. Here it is. So for all the things that Facebook and other social media accounts, all the bad things about them, all the cons, the real pro is, this bringing together of the community and the ability to reach people that you just simply couldn't before. So with that in mind, on the organic side of things, how important is it for brands like yourself or other brands in the space to maintain that organic presence on a regular basis? We did talk about not posting just for the sake of the algorithm, but at the same time, you do still need to post to stay relevant and to maintain that trust. So would love to hear.
I was just gonna say it's more of like on the like consumer research side of things, right? Like if you're gonna do a big media relations push or a product announcement or some piece of content out there like that, people are going to be doing their customer research. They're going to be looking, like when it comes to the restaurant side of things, like I'm always looking at social media to see what their plating looks like. What does their food look like? What is like the visual representation of the brand, and going to social media to see if they're open even. So having that content there, because it's essential when you're doing other things that people are going to, you're going to get in front of people. Their natural reaction is to go to social media to see kind of the next step. So having content is essential there, but that's why you don't have content just for the sake of content, because then if somebody's scrolling through your feed, they're just like, what the heck is this, you know? And also on top of that, really driving what's really good, and that I've really kind of championed across multiple different brands is with user generated content, right? So being able to get the user and kind of build that trust with the user. So it's not just like a graphic from us that's pushing, it's their voice, their perspective, their kind of, you know, not super polished piece. And it helps us tell the story through their eyes. And it also makes less work on our team.
Exactly. We push user generated content whenever we can for our clients on the social media side, because it's literally doing the work for you. And it has that exponential growth factor for sure. What are some of your favorite ways to get your audiences to give you that really juicy, really good user generated content? In the food space, it's kind of a little easier because if you have a bomb plate of macaroni, you're going to want to put that up on Insta. But if you have any tips on specific ways to really create the good user-generated content, not the blurry stuff or things you can't use, I think that'd be awesome to share with us now.
Yeah, it's really starts with a strong brand, right? Well, like a strong brand that people like kind of aspire to be like, as kind of cheesy as that sounds. But if you're just kind of like this company, let's use restaurant, for example, if you're just a restaurant that like serves good food and that's it, people aren't going to be as prone to sharing or posting or being excited about it. But if you have a strong brand behind your restaurant and things look aesthetically pleasing, obviously like easier said than done, but giving people the prompts to doing something, and then the reward of recognition when they do it. So when you're a brand that shares user-generated content, it tends to drive more user-generated content. And when they see that they're being recognized on social media and like, oh wow, like that's a good-looking photo. I also could take a photo of like my air purifier in my mid-century modern apartment and tag that brand because they're going to share it to their followers. So I would say UGC begets UGC. I don't know if that made sense, but you get the point.
No, it sure does. We'll quote you. That'll be the graphic for the cover image of the podcast. It'll be exactly perfect. No, but I mean, it touches on an exponential factor yet again. You know, that's basically the core and the heart of using social media to promote brands or to create brands, create this trust. It's that exponential growth that simply can't be replaced with advertisements or something that feels fake or pushed or false. And I think that's really why
we've had a lot of success at using the UGC, obviously like getting permission and everything, but using that as some of the ad copy and some of the ad creative too, because it is that authentic kind of piece of it. And it looks like, I mean, who hasn't seen like an Instagram story as you're like clicking through and all of a sudden you're like, who's that? Oh, it's an ad. But it gets you that like split second pause on it. And that's, as marketers, what we want in the news feed anyways.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's really cool. I could talk for way too long about, you know, social media and the user generated content, especially in the music space and food and beverage space. It's almost, I don't want to say easy, would hate to talk. I don't know about easy, but it's easier than trying to get user generated content for, say, I don't know, manufacturing parts or something like that. Yeah. You know, it's out there. That's what we at VisualFizz, it's kind of our job to make the not sexy sexy. But when you do get to work in the environments where it's just naturally sexy, it's extra fun for sure.
Yeah, we did. I worked with a lot of B2B clients previously as well. And that was always like a struggle, is like taking these like consumer focused topics and like things that, you know, work in social and digital and making them applicable to this like less sexy audience. So like, you know, we had a power tools client, and it was like, come on, like 50-year-old men are not going to be like posting about their power tools. And so just finding creative ways to get them excited and to get them like to start doing it. And like, we ended up developing a really robust like influencer program, which like, if you would have told me 5 years ago, there was like power tool influencers, I would have said you're crazy, but yeah, they're out there and they're active.
I have a lot of family and friends up in very far north Wisconsin, and the amount of power tool consumers and individuals that are on IMSA, it's truly incredible. There really is a tribe for everybody, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So something I want to make sure that we touch on before we get too far in the weeds on social is this concept of, and I apologize, I'm probably going to slaughter this name, Auris Presents, that's under NPK, Auris. Yeah, so something that's really interesting to me is when individuals, entrepreneurs, or even groups of people see a need for a totally new branch of something and then present that to a founding team and say, hey, we should break this off, here's why. So I'd love for you to spend a little bit of time about why the idea came up for you to kind of break off something a little more, central to, whatever the office for, or Auris, I'm gonna mess that up.
Yeah, Auris.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I get that AU noise. Perfect. So I just think that's a really cool concept, and the concept of creating something from nothing is something very interesting to me in VisualFizz. So I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, Auris came together. So like in the nightlife scene in Chicago specifically, there's like this like kind of consolidation, right? So there's, everybody knows like the Live Nations of the world and these big kind of corporate entities, and especially with COVID right now too, and music venues closing at a rapid pace and no real like safety net for live music companies right now. There's a bunch of different really great organizations like Civil, which is the Chicago Independent Venues League, and NIVA, which is the National Independent Venue Association. They're really trying to champion like this independent venues. They're claiming, they put out a study that said 90% of all independent venues potentially could close by 2021 if there's no federal kind of response to it. So promise I'm getting to the answer of your question though. So with that, we kind of had a coming together of different independents, from like event production and experiential to talent booking to venues. And in that coming together, it was kind of like, okay, well, what do we do here? And, we have NPK Hospitality, which is all of this, and we have live music, which is all this, but we don't want, from a branding and marketing perspective, we don't want people to think of us as a restaurant company and then be like, why is this restaurant company doing live music? Or why are they trying to sell me a disinfectant? So with that, we came together and put it under this Auris Presents brand. And what we want with that is really people to think of us as venues, like the live music experience. And when you go to a show, you're going to an Auris show. Whether or not that's a different theme under it, it's something that it gives you that brand perspective, and you have those feelings of like good sound acoustics, immersive experience, and just like cool. Like that's what we want to achieve with Auris Presents. And with NPK Hospitality, there's a totally different set of vibes and feelings that we want to convey and people to kind of think of us for. And the same thing with some of the other kind of business services brands. So Auris Presents is our chance to be the cool guys.
I love it. Yeah. Something, another industry that's really similar to that same concept is hotels, right? There are obviously really, really fancy, like Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons level hotels. There are obviously Super 8 level hotels, motels, and oftentimes they're owned by the same hierarchy brand, and it's simply to appeal to different audiences. In a way, you're not limited to the roots of your old brand when you break off and kind of start something new. So it's a really cool concept that I think definitely deserved highlighting. And I think it actually would be, do you have additional points?
No, I just saw somebody ask a question in the thing.
That's actually where I was going. So I have a question that will lead into this question. The question that I always really find really appealing, especially when it comes to the music and hospitality space on social, it's all about that personal touch, that personal connection. How important is your personal brand in maintaining the brand that you help to build and help to maintain? Is it important? What are some of your best tips on how to maintain that? And then I think this will pull really nicely into the question the person just asked.
Yeah, so personally, in our situation, which is a little bit different, like I always think about everything we do at scale, whether it's like one event, how do we bring that event to 6 different markets in 6 different concepts, once it grows. And I think about our team at scale too, right? So I personally, as an individual brand, like if I'm doing my job well, nobody should know who I am. Like outside of like industry people, like marketing industry people, like you guys can know who I am. But like the average consumer should not know the individual faces of our team. They should know the Oris Presents brand and how everything we're doing ladders up to like make that, to achieve our goal with that. So from that side, like I don't ever want my individual brand to be associated, because that doesn't scale very well. Having 6 other team members and having like a marketing team that's doing most of the legwork, like joining marketing industry calls and having that is one thing, but in being known in the music industry is one thing, but like from an average consumer perspective, like we don't ever want individual team members kind of be the face of the organization, because when you look at also other companies that are in the similar space, like there's like maybe 1 or 2 that you really know who the people are behind, but like if you try and think of like who's the marketing director for Lollapalooza or something like that, like they do a good job at their job, that you don't know them, the Lollapalooza brand. But I do think it's still important though that from on an individual basis, right, that you are championing the things that the brand is championing. Otherwise you don't have that ladder up effect, because really it starts with our own personal networks as like the easy low hanging fruit of audiences to reach.
And in a way, that network and your personal brand, they're one and the same in a lot of ways. How do you build up that network? Well, you get people to follow you in genuine ways. You connect with them in that real person conversation, and then now they're a part of your network. So in a lot of ways, one could argue that your personal brand is that network. And totally. Especially in the hospitality space, I think it makes sense that you have to, make your own brand present where it's appropriate. You don't want to distract from your main brand, but you still also need to maintain that network, the community. It's interesting from the marketing perspective and from the agency life, we actually find it very important to maintain a personal brand. You have to, the self-education aspect is critical, and people look at your personal credentials. Yeah, so I think it's interesting to, the main takeaway from what we're saying here is that it has to be appropriate. Your brand, your personal brand interjection, it has to fit, it has to be appropriate, and it has to be genuine.
Yep, I would totally agree with that. Because I think of it's like 2 different audiences, right? You have like industry, personal growth, professional growth, individuals where like you should always be growing your network and making these connections. But then from like a consumer side of things, like I don't want to be visible to that audience, and I don't want my brand to like leak over into that. Also just because it leads to a lot of guest list requests, and those are
not the same. Cool. Well, yeah, actually, so the question that was asked was in relation to, it looks like an individual account on social media or individual accounts on social media, but I think it can be applicable to brands as well. The question is, as an individual, to boost or not to boost promote on Instagram or Facebook, or is this 100% situational? So I know that as a marketer on the agency side, I definitely have a response to that, but we'd love to hear your response first.
Is it boost or not to boost? So I would say, honestly, I don't think you can achieve a lot of organic growth, like directly, like 100% organic. Every event, every restaurant, like I always have like a paid budget, at least some, small amount depending on the project. When to boost and when not to boost, I would say what I do is look at the organic performance and see how paid can push that. Like if I have a post that's not doing it well at all organically, like I don't think I wouldn't use paid to necessarily like get it to perform well. But if I have a post that's performing well organically, I would use the boost to make it perform, 10x or 50x, rather than getting a post that's kind of doing crappy to get 2 or 3x. Like I feel like I'd get more value out of a well-performing post, blowing it out of the water and making it, 50x rather than just, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very smart from a marketing perspective, obviously talking about that exponential growth. In a way, your organic community, I don't want to call it a sandbox because they're obviously very, very important. Like you've built that connection. But if something isn't really performing well with this community that loves you and knows you well, it's probably time to make small adjustments, do some experimentation, do some A/B testing to see if you can really make it to where the organic side does really well and is showing signs that, hey, this is a good piece of content. Let's promote it. Let's push it. So to tie the question back from the individual perspective, I would say that it is situational. It does sort of depend on the goal of what you're doing and the audience you're trying to reach. Much like you said, you can look for signs that things will perform well if it's time to boost. Some companies like our company, I feel confident in a lot of what we post out, and we usually won't boost things that we're not familiar with. We'll do market research and audience research before we boost things. We don't do it willy-nilly, if you will. So we feel comfortable reaching out into the audience and pushing it out and boosting on a regular basis. But if you're an individual and you're running an individual account and you're looking for growth, I would say that it is situational to put budget behind it. I would say that you should experiment with paid search budgets, even if it is an individual account, because the social media budget, there's just so much information and it can go such a long way. You know, even a $50 boost can help you reach 2,000 people that you hadn't reached before. So social media advertising is usually very effective and usually a really, really great place to learn about the market, you know, and really make sure that you're gathering that insight before you just put ad dollars out there. Cool. Another question. Apps like Facebook, etc. They obviously oh my gosh. Let me start all over. Apps like Facebook, etc. They obviously restrict a post's ability to reach organically, correct? Can you offer insight on growing a brand organically? So let's focus on that last question because we might need to kind of explain the breakdown of the first one. Can you offer insight on growing a brand organically?
So what we do is a lot of like using our own personal networks at the start of a launch for a specific brand. So like Oris Presents, the first phase of it was getting our team members who have networks in this space to share certain content in our announcement post, getting it shared out to that. We also did a heavy push around media relations. So that's something that is pretty organic in the sense that you can pitch out stories. If you have somebody who's dedicated to PR, obviously that's a role that is paid and salaried probably, or hiring somebody for a project role. But if you want to go purely organically, it's something an individual can do is pitch out to trade publications and getting like different brand announcements or launches and really what you stand for and the why you're coming out and what is it doing for the market? How is it interesting? Pushing that in PR tends to drive social traffic and gives you that buzz for people to follow along, and then reaching, like I said, your own personal networks because those people tend to share and kind of be really involved when they see something that's new for the industry and that you're working on.
Great answer, great response. If I could add an answer in as well, I would say one of the best ways a brand or even an individual, one of the top pieces of advice that we give to our clients when we are building organically as well as recommending those paid campaigns is to engage with other brands. If you want people to like your post, you got some liking to do. If you are on Instagram and you post an image, it's a good idea to jump into a hashtag that's relevant to your content and like or comment on the posts that are meaningful for you. So I would say from almost any brand or individual, the best way to get engagement is to give some. You know, that's a way to trigger the algorithm in a way that actually provides some value and get some eyes on the page. In a lot of cases on the social media side, you know, so many social media platforms, it's like the post is here for a second and then it's gone. It's out into the ether and there's millions of others like it. When it comes to brands, when you respond or, you know, even if a brand responds to an individual, that stays there forever. Forever, as long as the internet is up, as long as that Instagram channel is up, other people in the community see that post. Other people in the community that you wouldn't have reached before see the evidence of your interaction. They're like, cool, let me check out this brand. So it actually is effective. I would say on the organic side, it really is about time and effort. If you have all the time, if you're long on money or short on money, but long on time is that phrase. then you can build up an account very organically, very slowly. I've done it on my own Instagram channels. Apologies if you see anything slightly NSFW on my Insta, but just as an example, I built that account up above the 10K mark, and it was organically, and it took a long time, probably a year to really get that up. So there are ways to grow organically. It takes a lot of effort, and most brands, most individuals, it's worth the $50. It's worth $100 to find an audience that deserves to be targeted with your content. Will love it, will interact with it, and then you go after them.
Yep, agree with everything you said.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think one last thing that I would love to know in terms of specifics. So you're a brand, you have an event coming up. It's post-COVID. You've been working with you and everything sanitized and ready to go. And we're here. We have this event. We're ready to start promoting. What do we do? Where do we put it up? Where do we put our focus? Where do we put our priorities? Feel free to summarize. I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have a pretty standard, like, basic event template that we do. We have like a checklist. We use a project management tool where we get it out on all social channels. We have an email database of like 150,000 people. So what we do is we segment that by genre and like purchasing habits, again, kind of getting your data to work. And yeah, so we would send out an email blast out to all people in that specific genre and that specific venue or associated, like similar to that. We also do a lot of advertising on behalf of the artists' accounts. So if, let's say, who's a cool artist? I'm blanking on everything right now. So let's say the Violent Femmes. The Violent Femmes are coming to Chicago. And we have an announcement. What we want to do is obviously reach their fans, but we want to make it seem like they're excited about it. So we'll actually get access as an advertiser to their accounts, send them artwork for approval, text for approval, and be like, hey, Chicago, we're so excited to be playing Radius Chicago. And then we'll promote that to all of their Midwestern fans to get them to come through. We'll also send around, again, using your employees as your biggest advocates, we'll send around an email for the announcement post to our entire internal team with instructions on best practices for sharing that across social channels. So again, that like organic, low-hanging fruit of free kind of publicity from your team. If it's a huge kind of music festival event, it's a little bit different. We spend a lot of our budget up front for that, get people committed early because they're going to probably tell 2 friends and use their word of mouth because nobody really goes to a music festival alone. And we just really try and get as many people as committed as early as possible. But again, like I said about millennials with commitment issues, that tends to not always be the case. So, but really like it's a big upfront spend. So we want to get as much attention and awareness upfront. So that way for 2 months, before the event, we usually try and get like 2 months, 3 months announcement time. We just try and get people as committed as early as possible so that way we're not stressing ticket sales and we can just kind of lower marketing budgets and assess things as we go.
Yeah, you build up hype with a little bit of paid budget in the beginning and then let the exponential organic growth build you up from there.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Great response. Do we have any other questions from the participants or other panelists on? Otherwise, I think we're at a good place to start to wrap it up. One more. I do have a question, but I would love a second to screen it before I read it out loud. So just 1 second. Yeah. Have you noticed any changes in consumption habits due to this circumstances? How has that strategy changed since we are not necessarily attending events? So we can put this a couple ways. Let's focus maybe on consuming of, the bar scene things, like alcohol, drinks, kind of party food, that kind of stuff. A party your parents would attend kind of stuff. And then we can also talk about, maybe just how has the way that people purchase things and get ready for a show, or, obviously there are no shows right now, but maybe you could predict, how people are going to change their habits post-COVID?
Yeah, so I think we have two real things, like alcohol consumption and even just like media consumption, right? With a lot of what we're doing, people are doing a lot more like live streams. We're not necessarily like doing a ton of that, just because the venues that we do don't lend itself, like it's in-person experiences, not so much like just on TV, like they're huge venues.
And
but
the live stream experiences, it's just not the same, right?
It's not at all.
Sure.
I'm not a fan. I haven't like watched more than 10 minutes of a live stream concert.
I've done some on Twitch, and Twitch makes it cool because sometimes there's different angles, so it at least has a little bit of an experience. But yeah, it's just not quite the same. Sorry to derail you.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah, no, it's really not. It's not like I understand it from like an artist perspective, but from a venue brand perspective, it just doesn't have a lot of the same pull. From an alcohol and like consumption perspective, I mean, we're at zero, right? Like we're not open, so we're at like hard zero. What we're planning for the future is less of, I would say the one thing in talking with like liquor sponsors or liquor companies is really it's like the rise of White Claw, right? Like people want those like and not just White Claw though. It's like a ripple effect into just ready to go like
The
cocktails.
seltzer.
Yeah, and even just, like canned cocktails, like pre-batched, taste good, low calorie, less like PBRs and kind of crappy concert beers. So you really have to up your game in regards to and anything with food too. I mean, if you're doing a music festival, people don't want funnel cake and churros. It's got to be like an elevated experience. So we're planning a lot of that, and that ties into the marketing as well as a lot of partnerships with local companies that really are also struggling. So working to give back to those local partners as well is something that we've been heavy pushing.
I love it. I think that speaks to, I'm probably biased towards Chicago. I'm sure other cities have this too, but I love this concept of partnership and making sure that local factor matters. I think it does matter for us, especially in Chicago. You attach yourself to the neighborhood you're in, you want to support other brands. So I think that definitely is a way to build the experience in a new way.
Yep, definitely.
Well, cool. Awesome. I think we're at time. So I really appreciate all of the answers today. We learned a lot of things. To summarize, focusing on organic engagement, that's very genuine, very real, making sure that the experiential factors are put in some way to the experience, using the advantage of the exponential factors of social to boost your sales and your event knowledge is really some of the things we've discussed. Anything else you'd like to throw out there? Any shout outs you'd like to give to anybody? Go for it.
Yeah.
Now.
I mean, I would say at the end of the day, support independent music venues, independent promoters, independent artists. What happens at the end of the day if, let's say, everything's consolidated into one of these large kind of behemoths like the Live Nation of the world, is that really fans miss out. When they're controlling the ticketing, they're controlling the venue, they're controlling the talent. What you see is a lack of experience, a raise in ticket costs, and a lack of options. So if you see a GoFundMe, if you see merch sales, if you see really anything that your favorite live venue is doing, make sure to go ahead and support them, because that's what's going to help get them through until something happens with this one of the NEVA or civil organizations in regards to government funding.
Yes, for sure. Love it. Well, thank you for being with us on the VisualFizz Growth Series today. We definitely do these a couple times a month, and I know that we have another one coming up here in December. So thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Joe, for being on with us today. Really appreciate you as our guest. See you later. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.